What's going on? That ain't what I asked. Stay right there. I need you to stay right there. Okay? While I wait for my viewers to get here. I'm just going to chill and hang out and stare into the camera awkwardly while I wait for people to start piling up in here. As soon as I see a name pop up on that screen, then I'm going to say hello. Hey, there we go. Spoke of the devil. Who was that? Dollar Silver, what's going on? I see you up in here. Mariah, what's going on? Yellow Submarine. Submarine. Emily. You got some channel members up in here, baby. What up, Candy Girl? Y'all, we is live tonight. I'm not going to be here on, Friday? So there's going to be no Friday night live stream. Or, hell, I'm not going to be here Thursday either. I'm going up to the cabins. This trip has been planned months and months ago for a big group of us. I don't even know how many people going. Maybe 10 of us. I was just looking. People are in the little chat talking about taking the little Rona test. Everybody taking the Rona test before we go out there to make sure everybody's gonna be safe. But anyway, so we're doing some Mr. Ballin tonight, baby. We're doing some Mr. Ballin. This one is This Demon Still Lives Among Us. I don't know exactly what he means by that, but I'm definitely about to find out. Woo! Y'all boys, girls ready? Miss Mandy, I'm going to email you. Be expecting the email coming soon. I want to see you some clips. I'm ready. Let's go.
Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction, and today we're going to look at 3 stories that demonstrate that. But before we get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious...
Really? He says sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. You can make fiction really strange, but hell, if the truth can be worse, that's a tall order.
And then proceed to browse around for about 30 minutes and then leave without buying anything. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's stories.
Talk towards Mr. Ballin.
In 1957, 31-year-old Larry Bader was living with his wife, Mary Lou, and their 3 kids in Akron, Ohio. Larry was a good father and good husband, but he was a terrible businessman. Over the past several years, he had launched several new business ventures, and they had all failed, throwing the family into fairly significant debt. And so even though Larry desperately wanted to be an entrepreneur and eventually start a quality business, they didn't have the money to do that. And so he had to just take some job in order to pay the bills. And so the job he got was a cookware salesman for a local company, and it did pay the bills, but it did not make Larry happy. And so on the weekends when Larry was not working, and if it was okay with his wife, he would basically just disappear and go fishing on Lake Erie, which is about an hour north of where they lived. And
well, it makes sense that he's not a very good businessman. I'm over here thinking, well, when he's not working his 9 to 5, he's putting in the hours to create this sustainable business business endeavor that he's trying to embark on. But no, this fool is disappearing and going fishing and stuff. Dude, you're supposed to use that time to put in that work, man. Hell, that's what I did. Still doing it.
That was his way of kind of disconnecting from reality and kind of disconnecting from his somewhat crappy life. And so on Friday, March 15th, Larry approached his wife and said, hey, I'd like to head up to Lake Erie and go fishing for the weekend. And she would tell him, I got the kids, it's fine, you can go do that. But I heard the weather was going to be really bad. Are you sure that's such a good idea? And Larry would tell her, you know what, don't worry about it. These storms, they always hype them up. They're never a big deal. I'll be fine. And so he kissed his wife, he kissed his kids, he grabbed his stuff, he hopped in his truck, and he left and headed up to Lake Erie. That night, Lake Erie was hit with a massive thunderstorm, way bigger than the one that the news was predicting. And then the following morning, the Coast Guard discovered Larry's boat floating around on Lake Erie. There was minor damage to it, and it was missing an oar, and it was missing Larry. Larry was nowhere to be found. And so a search was launched for Larry, but he was never found, and he was eventually declared dead. And so even though the family did not have Larry's body, they would hold a funeral for him, and his wife was able to actually cash his life insurance policy, which was enough to pay for her and the kids. 8 years later, in 1965, Larry Bader's niece, a 21-year-old woman named Suzanne Peka, was in Chicago at a sporting goods show with a friend of hers. And as they're walking through the different exhibits, looking at different sporting goods equipment, they noticed over on the side of the building, there was a fairly large group of people gathered around this one particular exhibit. And so she and her friend she was with walked over to this group, and they kind of pushed their way through. And in the middle of this group was this man with an eye patch and a big mustache doing an archery demonstration. Basically, he was shooting arrows into a target about 30 feet away. And so Suzanne and her friend just kind of watched this guy for a couple of minutes, and very quickly they could see why he was attracting this big crowd, because he was just an incredible archer. He was hitting the bullseye over and over and over again. But as they continued to watch this guy, Suzanne's friend started to notice something unique about him. And he eventually turned to Suzanne and said, "Hey, doesn't this guy look exactly like your uncle who went missing on Lake Erie?" And Suzanne was kind of surprised to hear him talking about her missing uncle, but she turned and looked at this guy, and all of a sudden she saw it too. He was a spitting image of Larry Bader, her uncle. Although this guy had an eye patch and a mustache, but even with that, he looked exactly like Larry. And as Suzanne is watching him, she's thinking, you know, Larry was known for being this incredible archer, and here this guy is who looks just like him, and he's an incredible archer. And so after this demonstration,
it was crazy. That was a real photo of him too, bro. What the heck?
Was over, Suzanne and the friend ran over to this guy with the eye patch on, and Suzanne says to him, "Hey, I know this sounds totally crazy, but you look exactly like my uncle, Larry Bader, who went missing on Lake Erie 8 years ago." And so the guy, he hears her and he kind of smiles and says, "You know, I'm sorry, I don't know Larry Bader. My name is John Johnson. People call me Fritz. I'm sorry, I don't know who your uncle is. I can't help you." But Susan,
if that's really how he responded, I would think that was a very fishy response. Like, why would you say, "Sorry, I don't know who your uncle is"? Why wouldn't you say, "Oh, that's a funny coincidence. Cool. Hey, do you got a picture of him? Can I see him?" Like, really sell it. You just gave away the fact that you probably are the uncle. Let's hear a little bit more. I got a lot on my mind about this one.
Dan, as she stood there staring at this guy, she was becoming more and more convinced this was Larry Bader, despite the fact this guy is saying he is not.
Okay, now I gotta say it. So, my assumption is, since this man was so unhappy with his life, he decided to be selfish and leave his family behind, knowing that his wife will collect an insurance policy on his life. Yes, his wife told him, "Hey, it might not be best for you to go out on this day to go fishing because the weather doesn't look too nice." He already knew that. He was going to use that to fake his death. A bad storm, a missing row, his boat floating out in the water. It's just a messed up coincidence that his niece found him in a whole nother state doing this little archery demonstration. And it's somewhat of a dead giveaway because he was known to be a good archer. Come on now.
Larry Bader. And so she says to him, "No, you are Larry Bader. I'm positive you're my uncle." Now at this, Fritz would be polite but firm, and he would reiterate that, "Look, I'm not your uncle. I don't know who Larry Bader is. I don't go to Lake Erie. I just don't understand why you think I'm him. I live in Omaha, Nebraska with my wife and my kids, and I'm on TV. I do sports journalism."
What? Look at him. It's the same dude. You talking about you do sports journalism. You're on TV. You're on TV, bro. I'm surprised you didn't get caught that way. This man got remarried. Got a whole other family out there. Like, what in the world, dude? You was a good father. And then you leave your... That's crazy. Could y'all imagine being somebody, being a man, Because a man can pull this off better than a female. Females can do it too. But a man, we've heard multiple stories of guys doing some stuff like this. But could you imagine being that person? You leave behind, you fake your death, and you start fresh, a whole new life in a whole new town or city. You get remarried underneath a different name. You have kids all over again. You got to watch these new kids grow up. You got to change these diapers. Could you imagine doing that? That is crazy. I would love to play a character that did that in a movie. I couldn't imagine doing it in real life.
In Omaha, and I advise archery companies. That's why I'm here. So I don't know why you think I'm your uncle, but I'm not. I'm sorry. And with that, Fritz turned around and he walked away. And after this discussion, Suzanne and her friend were not remotely deterred from what Fritz was saying. They were completely convinced this was Larry Bader. And so they ran to a phone, and Suzanne called her two other uncles, so Larry Bader's brothers, and she explained how she met this guy that is the spitting image of their brother. And they immediately hopped on a flight that night and flew to Chicago. And the following morning, the two uncles, along with Suzanne and her friend, they went back to the sporting goods show. They went over to the archery exhibit, and sure enough, there was Fritz doing his archery demonstration. And as soon as there was a break, Suzanne, her friend, and now the two uncles, so Larry Bader's brothers, they walk over, and the two uncles, as soon as they see this guy, despite the eye patch, despite the mustache, they too would say, "This is our brother." And so they approached him and they said, "Look, I know you're saying you are not our brother. I don't know what's going on here, but you look exactly like our brother."
Now, this would make you think. I see the Cash App donations coming through, you guys. I appreciate them. I'm going to shout you guys out shortly, and I'm going to shout out the people from yesterday I missed. But these are supposed to be the brothers of this guy. Now, if they talk to him, hear his voice, that should be more of a giveaway for them to know whether or not they're actually related to him. And if that is the case, then this dude is messed up on a whole other level for him to leave not only his wife and kids behind, but his niece, his brothers, the rest of his family. But what if this is the guy, this guy is who he say he is? Or what if that day on the boat, that accident did occur, something did happen to him, he lost his memory, he didn't know who he was, so he ended up leaving and ended up in Chicago and started a whole new life? What if that's the other story? That would be crazy too.
And we have his military paperwork right here with fingerprints. Will you please just humor us and go to the police station with us and get fingerprinted? That way you can prove you really are not our brother. Please, we've been looking for our brother for a long time. This would be a huge favor to us. And so Fritz was annoyed. He didn't want to do it, but he's like, okay, fine. I'll go to the police station with you. I'll get my fingerprints taken and we can put this behind us.
Pause. Now, see, that would kind of get it closer to the theory that I had, because if he's willing to do this, then he's not putting up a facade, making it seem as though that he's just trying to keep his identity concealed. Hell, after all, he's on TV. Maybe he did lose his memory that day.
And so that day, they left the sporting goods show, they went to a police station, and Fritz had his fingerprints taken, and afterwards, the police would tell him, "You are Larry Bader." When Fritz heard this, he could not believe it. I mean, he literally did not believe he was Larry Bader.
Now, that makes me wonder, too, since he didn't... Oh, my God, this is crazy. I love this story, though. So this makes me think, does he not have any recollection of memory beyond the past 8 years of his life? He started a whole family and stuff. Like, he couldn't think for a second that this isn't a possibility, that he's this other man. Because if he doesn't have any recollection of a past memory of his childhood or upbringing, then he should be able to think, oh, wait, it's a possibility. I did lose my memory, or I don't remember anything after or before, like, the past 8 years.
It wasn't like this revelation prompted new memories and suddenly he recalled it all. It was really the opposite. Fritz immediately is trying to rack his brain to figure out, like, is my whole life a lie? But there was nothing. All he had was a contiguous stretch of memories from when he was a very young child as Fritz Johnson all the way to the present. But
what? He has memory of being a kid. I was going to say that too, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to save that. I'm talking too much. But no, I was thinking, I'm like, what if he does have memory of a childhood that didn't exist? What?
We now know that the bulk of his memories are all not real. He was never a child as Fritz Johnson. He was Larry Bader and then became Fritz Johnson only 8 years earlier. The timeline of what happened to Larry Bader is rough at best. But as far as we understand it, Fritz Johnson showed up in Omaha, Nebraska a couple of days or a couple of months after Larry Bader went missing on Lake Erie. And when Fritz showed up in Omaha, he just walked into a restaurant and asked for a job there, and he had provided documentation that showed he was in fact Fritz Johnson, and nobody thought anything of it. He was completely normal. There was nothing unusual about.
Wait, what? How did he have documentation showing that he was this person that he wasn't? Do they not know what happened to him on that boat that day? Yo, this story is crazy.
About his behavior, and over time, Fritz just kind of thread himself into the Omaha community. I mean, he got married, he had a child, he adopted another child, he left his job as a bartender at a restaurant.
Yo, his wife looks like this one actress, like this famous actress. She looks just like her. Can't think of her name.
And eventually got this amazing job as a sports TV broadcaster
which is crazy because this guy doesn't mind working a 9-to-5 job. He walked into that diner or restaurant, whatever it was, and asked them for a job just weeks or months, whichever one it was, after the boat incident. This guy doesn't mind a job. The other one, he wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Their local channel. I mean, he was like a minor celebrity in Omaha. Everybody recognized, oh, there's Fritz Johnson. He's on TV. Hey, Fritz, how you doing? I mean, he had a full-blown life. But as soon as the news broke that he was not Fritz Johnson, he was Larry Bader, right away, the TV station he worked for fired him. His second wife left him because in reality, he actually was still legally married to his first wife. And so his marriage to his second wife was never actually real to begin with. And so she leaves him. And then also because Larry Bader was no longer dead, the insurance company that had paid out all that money to his first wife as part of his life insurance policy, they demanded that he repay them. And throughout all this drama of Fritz finding out he's Larry Bader, Fritz continued to say he was not Larry Bader, that this was all a big mistake. He just could not understand how this could have happened. None of it made sense. And so eventually a team of experts, doctors, psychologists, you name it, they came out to Omaha and they ran Fritz, aka Larry Bader, through a battery of tests over almost 2 weeks. And at the end of all their testing, they concluded that one, Fritz definitely is Larry Bader. So there's no debate there. He is Larry Bader. And two, he is almost certainly suffering from an extreme case of amnesia, which is memory loss. But the doctors and experts had no idea how he developed this case of amnesia. And of course, Fritz, he too had no idea how he developed this case of amnesia.
Oh my God. Yo, this story is crazy. This is almost like one of those incidents where you would think that it would actually be better had this man been left alone. Had this little nosy little dang on niece of his just left him alone and let him be, rather than being so suspicious about this guy potentially being her uncle. It's one thing if he would have tried to change his identity, but for this to happen this way, it almost is like, let it be. Let it go. Just let it be, because he doesn't have any recollection of his past life, and yet his life has been ruined. The only life that he knows has been ruined by some people that are basically telling him something that in his mind he's thinking, yo, this is crap. This is BS. Y'all are trying to make me be this person that I'm not. Why are y'all doing this to me? He's innocent. He's really innocent. He needs to be left alone. This is crazy.
And it's unlikely we'll ever get any more clarity on exactly what happened to Larry Bader / Fritz, because unfortunately, just 1 year after it was discovered Fritz was Larry Bader, Fritz would die. He had cancer in one of his eyes, and that was actually why he wore that eye patch, and the cancer had come back and it took his life. Today, his case is considered to be one of the most believable and baffling cases of amnesia on record.
Seriously? That definitely was one of the most baffling cases of amnesia that I've ever heard. My aunt had amnesia one time, really bad for a while. It took so much to get her to remember who she was, who her family was, and all this stuff. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but it was crazy. But man, yo. And it's crazy to think that, you know, his life was ruined to some degree because he lost his job. His wife left him. All this negative stuff started to unfold in his life. And then a year later, he ended up losing his life to this cancer, unfortunately. But I wonder, had he not died from cancer, what his life would have been like. You know, because he's definitely not going to go back to his ex-wife. He doesn't know that woman. He doesn't know those kids. It's so unfortunate for them to know that he's still alive. But then obviously, you know, his wife who left him doesn't really understand what was going on with him. You would think she would have been a better woman to stay by his side, but she's assuming he's lying about this whole ordeal, which is why she left him, right? This story is crazy.
Before we get into our next story, I want to talk to you about today's sponsor, HelloFresh. Back during the beginning of the pandemic, we were not able to get groceries or have food delivered to our house. And so before long, we were down to eating just the diet Cheeto.
Hey, happy birthday to your mother, Inky B. Shout out to her. Tell her I said happy birthday. Miss Harrison, shout out to you. Thank you for the dono, sweetheart.
Fresh. HelloFresh is like one of those things where as soon as you have it, you think to yourself, how could I have ever lived without this? They send you this neat little box full of meals, and there's all these incredible meals to choose from fairly intricate to very quick and easy. And so whatever your tastes are, they...
Yo, I was actually thinking about this literally before I went live. I was thinking about HelloFresh literally before I went live. Because I'm lazy and I'm not tired of cooking. I'm just lazy. I just don't want to cook no more. Hey, hold on.
Got it. But the catch is, they are not made. You are the chef.
Oh, hell no. Oh, no. So I still got to cook? But no, real talk, I love cooking. I just want some healthier alternatives because I'm not bored with what I'm making, but I'm bored with what I'm making.
And you make the meals. And before you tell me that you're a bad chef, I'm a bad chef.
I'm a great chef. That's all I know.
And I'm able to whip these meals together no problem because all the ingredients are perfectly proportioned, which also means you don't waste any food, and the recipes are incredibly easy to follow. So the end product is home-cooked, fresh, delicious food every time. So if your New Year's resolution is to eat better or to just stop snarfing as many diet Cheetos, then you really need to sign up for HelloFresh. To do that, go to HelloFresh.com, use the code Mrballen16 to get up to 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts. Okay, back to the stories.
3 surprise gifts? What kind of gifts?
Just outside of...
Oh, you'll never catch me bungee jumping. Heck no, my fat butt gonna break that cord.
The popular tourist town of Amaga in northern Colombia lies this thick green jungle. And if you know where to look, there is actually a walking path that leads you from Amaga deep into this jungle. And if you keep going, it will bring you all the way to this terrifying, enormous old railroad bridge that spans this huge ravine.
That looked like something people would bungee jump off of. Not me.
Now, this bridge is no longer used by trains. It's been decommissioned. However, since its decommissioning, there's actually been, ironically, more traffic on this bridge.
Oh, heck no. You couldn't get me to walk on that.
although it is the foot traffic variety. People come out to this bridge to go bungee jumping. Bungee jumping is a thrill-seeking activity where people will leap off of high places, like this bridge, and they'll jump with an elastic rope tied to their ankles.
I'm glad I'm not one of them thrill-seeking type of people, man. Shit. I know folks that do all kinds of stuff, jumping out of airplanes and all that. Nah. I keep my feet on the ground.
And so this rope has been very carefully measured so that when it is fully stretched all the way out, it ensures whoever has jumped will still not impact the ground.
Shit. Hey, that's what they say, but I've seen a few people splat.
Back in early July of 2021, a 25-year-old Colombian lawyer named Yesenia Gomez, who lived about an hour north of Amaga in the larger city of Medellin, she told her boyfriend that she wanted to go bungee jumping. This was something Yesenia had talked about for a long time, wanting to go bungee jumping, but every time it became a real thing and they were actually going to go do it, she would back down because she was just too scared. But for whatever reason, in July of 2021, Yesenia had the confidence.
Pause. Two things. It was her idea, but yet she was so scared. Look, usually folks that want to go do stuff like this, they not really that scared to go do it. They might be scared in the moment, but they don't have to talk themselves into it or out of it a bunch of times before actually doing it. And then the second thing is, dang, this just happened. I thought this was going to be an old story like 2007. This is 2021. This is the year before last. No, this is last year. What am I saying?
And the courage to actually see this thing through. And so her boyfriend, when he heard how serious she was, he capitalized on the opportunity because he had never bungee jumped before and he really wanted to, but he couldn't without his girlfriend. And so now it seemed like she was serious. And so right away, he called the Amaga bungee jumping company to book a slot for he and Yesenia to jump off of their bridge. So on the day they were supposed to jump, which was Sunday, July 18th, Yesenia and her boyfriend hopped in their car. And
see, look, this is how much of a punk that I am, man. When you go to other countries and you want to do some excursions and stuff, understand that the dangers are 10x when you're in another country. Like when I went to Costa Rica back in, what was that, November? All my friends went and did all type of excursions. They was jet sailing, whatever the heck, when the boats pull you in the whatever, you know, when they pull you and you be up in the air and with the boat and the thing and you in the air. They was doing that. They was what else they do? They did some zip lining. They did all kinds of. They did a scuba diving little thing, but it was the weather was bad, so they didn't get in the water like that. But they did everything they did. Guess what I did? Nothing. I didn't do none of that mess. I'm like, heck no, I ain't about to die here. This is my first time out of the country. I'm gonna keep my butt inside. Y'all go ahead and have your fun. I see y'all if you get back. Nope, not me. Hey, you might say, hey, Artofkickz, you're no fun. Shit, I'm alive, I tell you that much.
They drove an hour.
I did the ATV, though.
Or south to Amaga, and when they got there, they found the walking trail, and they made their way out to this bridge. And when they get out to this bridge, they are amazed at the number of people who are already in line on this bridge waiting to jump off of it. They knew this was a popular spot, but perhaps they didn't realize just how popular it was. And so Yesenia and her boyfriend, they get in line behind the nearly 100 other jumpers ahead of them, and they proceed to wait.
Look, where a rubber band at? I need a rubber band, man. Wild as a Taliban. Look. This ain't a rubber band, but I think of a rubber band like that bungee cord thing like this. You pull on it enough time, people jumping with that same cord enough time, that thing gonna stretch out. It's gonna get weaker and weaker. And then by the time you get to me, customer number 101 at 300 pounds, that thing gonna snap. Nope, not me.
And over the next several hours, Yesenia and her boyfriend would have front row seats to all of the jumpers ahead of them jumping off the bridge. Now, it seems like Yesenia, in her mind, believed she would arrive at this bridge and very quickly she and her boyfriend would leap off and it would be great and so much fun. But now they've been forced to wait for a really long time. And this whole time, they're watching other people jump. And Yesenia is starting to panic. Suddenly, bungee jumping looked terrifying. It did not look like something she wanted to do.
That's what I always thought. I always thought that. This girl was like, wait a minute. I'm watching all these people go. This junk don't look fun. This look terrifying. It's like, you're about to push me off of this bridge? And then right before I hit the ground, this rope is supposed to save me from splatting? That don't look fun. Like this chick right here. This did not look fun at all. That bunch, look, man, she was too close to the ground. Look at this. This does not look fun. Look at this. They about to let her go. She's already in the coffin position because she almost went there. And then she just go for that. Look at that. She looked like that does not look fun. And then whoop. Almost touched the ground. She was this close. Nah.
Terrifying.
And then on the bungee and coming back up, you can hit yourself on the bridge somewhere and get a concussion. There's somebody in the chat just said she had 11 concussions. She couldn't do this or ride on a roller coaster. I don't do roller coasters no more either.
Did not look like something she wanted to do.
Don't do it, baby. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't put yourself through that. Let your boyfriend do it. He want to do it.
And so she was beginning to second guess her decision. And so her boyfriend,
go with them intuitions, sweetheart. Go with them intuitions, like I always say. They'll save you.
And so she was beginning to second guess her decision. And so her boyfriend, he's trying to calm her down and he's telling her, oh, it's totally safe. Look at all these people who have jumped. They're all fine. They're all smiling. They're so happy. You're going to be so proud of yourself.
I don't care about them people. Shit, I'm not doing it.
But despite his best efforts to calm his girlfriend down, Yesenia just could not calm down. But she did tell her boyfriend that she's not about to back down. She's going to go through with this. And so several hours went by, this totally high-stress, anxious waiting period.
Think about that. You're waiting for hours, and the entire time you're anxious and no. I'm out.
And then finally, Yesenia and her boyfriend reached the front of the line, at which point the staff members who've been doing this all day long, they signaled the two to step forward and get their harnesses on. And so Yesenia and her boyfriend...
Yo, this is the real photo of the staff on that day. That's crazy.
And they make their way to the edge of the platform, so they're looking out over this ravine, and the staff members are putting on their harnesses and getting them ready. And the whole time
I'm sorry I keep stopping it, but I got so much going through my mind because I've seen bungee jumping gone bad. I've seen it, and it's not okay ever. There's always some serious injuries. This is one of those things where it's either gonna go well or it's gonna go horribly wrong. I don't like to chance my life with those type of odds. I don't. I do not. I'm good. I'm good. I watch other folks do it, but I'm not gonna do it. You understand me? But especially with me, like her being in this situation where she was anxious the entire time. I suffer from extreme panic attacks. I would feel like I'm dying just being there. There's no way. Nope, not me.
Yesenia, she's starting to get tunnel vision. Her heart is racing. She's totally panicked. She doesn't think this is fun at all. She just wants to get this over with. And then at some point, one of the staff members finally says, okay, jump. And so Yesenia jumps.
Man, there was a time I saw a clip of somebody bungee jumping and their head just smacked the ground. The cord didn't snap. Head smacked the ground. Woo!
Except it would turn out Yesenia had made a mistake. That staff member who had said, okay, jump, was talking to her boyfriend, not Yesenia. However, Yesenia, in her totally panicked state, had just not understood and had leapt, believing they were telling her to jump. However, the staff members had only put her harness on. They had not attached the actual elastic rope to her ankles.
Oh my God! Oh my... You see? Oh my God! You see? This girl was in such a panic state that when she heard okay jump, she jumped and all she had on was the harness. She didn't have on the elastic band, the rubber band, the bungee cord itself. But it makes perfect... See, that could have easily been me. I would have been, my mind would have been racing and racing. And then when I heard, okay, jump, and I'm like, okay, I'm trying to get this over with. Nah, heck no. Heck no. Heck, I'm not saying that would be me, because it definitely wouldn't, because I would never do this. But still. Oh my God. That's, woo. I'm surprised that they were bungeeing the two of them together at the same time. I know they wasn't going to have both of them jump, but the fact that they're harnessing them up and putting them in position, I wish I could see, because don't they hold her? I don't know, man. I don't know what possessed her to jump other than the fact that she was so stressed.
Yesenia jumped, there was nothing stopping her from smashing into the ground. And so as soon as she leapt off the bridge, her boyfriend ripped off all of his gear and he ran down the bridge. He leapt over the railing and he ran down the hillside all the way to the bottom of this ravine. But when he finally got to his girlfriend, it was already too late. She was already gone. It would later be determined Yesenia did not die from impacting the ground. She actually died from a heart attack she suffered on the fall down, which means she must have realized after she jumped that she jumped too early, that she did not have the bungee cord attached to her legs. And so literally the fear of what was about to happen to her killed her.
That was an actual photo. It looked like this is an actual photo of her leaping without the bungee cord. She realized what she did. This would have been me. This would have been me. I would have realized the mistake that I made, and that panic, that racing of my heart that I was already experiencing would have turned into a heart attack, and I would have left this earth before hitting that ground. It was almost as if it was better that she had that heart attack before she hit the ground, because that fall,
fear of what was about to happen to her killed her.
I'm in tears. I'm in tears because I felt like, you know, as an empath, I put myself in her shoes. I put myself on that bridge with just the harness on, no bungee, jumping off, realizing the mistake I made with my heart racing. I put myself there. God.
1974, 31-year-old Michael Taylor was living happily with his wife Christine and their 5 children in Ossett, which is a small town in central England. Michael was described as a great father and a great husband who had an excellent sense of humor. In fact, neighbors, whenever they would walk past the Taylor household, would say you could often hear the sound of Michael laughing or the sound of him telling jokes to his family. But in April of that year, everything changed for the Taylor family. Michael had been doing some home repairs when he fell off of a ladder and he hurt his back. The injury itself was fairly minor, but it resulted in chronic pain. And this chronic pain quickly changed how Michael behaved. Michael went from being this cheerful, funny, happy guy to being sad and depressed. And he was so irritable that his family could barely be around him because he would lash out at them. Now,
Yeah, y'all know I have dealt with my fair share of back pains, and it can change your mood. It can change your mood. Luckily for me, it didn't change my mood, but I can see why, because it's like a burden. Having chronic pain is like a burden on your life, and it keeps you from being able to be your best self. So I understand, but it sucks that it changed him like that.
Now, the Taylor family was not a religious family. However, most families who lived in Osset at that time were. And so when one of Michael's friends found out about how poorly Michael was doing, they approached Michael and said, you know, you really ought to turn to religion for help and for guidance in this difficult time. And they also told him specifically that he really ought to check out this one particular Christian group. It was called the Christian Fellowship Group, and all it was a prayer group for Christians who wanted more religious support beyond just going to church on Sundays. But this friend of Michael's told him that the real draw of this group was the group's leader. Her name was Marie Robinson, and she was this 21-year-old, extremely friendly and energetic and charismatic person who just had this incredible way of making all of her members really feel like they belonged. And so Michael's friend was telling him that he really thought Marie could be the difference maker for him, that she could help him get back to normal. And so Michael, he trusted this friend, and he really didn't have much to lose at this point. He was already at rock bottom, and so he agrees to go check this group out. So on September 12th of that year, Michael makes his way to the church where this fellowship group is held. He goes inside and he makes his way to one of the back rooms in the church, and when he goes inside, he sees there's a ring of people sitting in a circle, about 20 people, and as soon as they see Michael coming in the room, they all stand up and they open their arms up and they say, come on, come sit down with us. Welcome to the group. And then the woman who had to be Marie, she stands up and she looks at Michael, huge smile on her face, and she encourages him to come over and sit right next to me. Welcome. We'd love to have you join our group. And so Michael, for the first time in ages, is smiling as he strides across the room and sits down right next to Marie. And then as Marie began to lead the group in prayer, Michael did not feel his chronic pain. He just felt happy again. But when the meeting was over and Michael went back home again, the pain and depression came flooding back. It was like the only place he could be happy was inside of the church at this fellowship group. And so over the next couple of weeks, Michael completely prioritized this group. He went to all of their meetings, and over the course of these couple of weeks, Michael became very close with Marie, and apparently Marie became very close with Michael, to the point where the two of them would stay after the meetings were over, and just those two would sequester themselves in quiet prayer. No one knew what they did in there, but it just seemed like they were developing a real relationship. And in fact, many people in this group suspected they were having an affair. And before long, the rumors in the church had spread outside and were all over Osset. And then before long, Christine, Michael's wife, was hearing from a friend or a neighbor that apparently Michael was having an affair with Marie. Now, Christine had already suspected her husband was having an affair with Marie because Marie was the only thing Michael talked about when he got home. So on October 1st of that year, only a couple of weeks after Michael had first attended this group, Christine waited until Michael had left the house to head out to one of the group meetings.
That's crazy. You would think that he had been in this group for 3 months or more, but he had only been in there for a couple of weeks for it to escalate to this point where people are assuming, and his wife is assuming, that he's having an affair after just a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, right? Because if it was a month, they would have said a month. 2-3 weeks. And this assumption has arisen. Maybe it's just helping him that much.
And then Christine hopped in her car and she followed him to the church. And when she got there, she parked her car, she took a deep breath, and then she got out, she made her way to the front doors of the church, and she stormed inside. And she found the room where these meetings were held. She barges in and she points at her husband and she says, I know you're having an affair with Marie, and you're going to admit it in front of this whole group. And Michael, who's sitting with his back to his wife in one of the chairs, he stands up, and instead of addressing his wife, who's accused him of infidelity, he turns and looks at Marie on the other side of the room. And when Marie made eye contact with Michael, she screamed. She would later say Michael did not look human. He looked like a beast, and he had wild eyes. And so as Michael is standing there staring at Marie with this very aggressive face, he began breaking out in tongues. Speaking in tongues is where the speaker will be saying or uttering words or sounds that sound like language, but the speaker doesn't know what they mean. The idea is some entity has come inside of their body, and this entity is dictating their speech. And so Michael is broken out in tongues. He's barking these words and sounds at Marie, and everyone inside of the room has no idea what to make of this. Everything is happening.
What the freak? No way. Yo, that gave me major chills. I was not expecting that. What?
Happened so suddenly, and it's so surprising. You have the wife suddenly coming in and aggressively accusing her husband of cheating, and Michael is not responding to it, and he's acting totally crazy.
There should be a movie about this.
And then, before anyone can do anything, Michael goes from just barking in strange languages at Marie to suddenly rushing across the room as if he's going to attack her. And when he does that, the rest of the members jump on top of him and hold him down. And despite there being like 10 or 15 people holding him down, Michael is still trying to get up, and he's screaming and snarling and yelling at Marie. And then Marie suddenly breaks out into tongues too. And it's only then that Michael stops trying to force himself up out of this pig pile that's on top of him.
That's crazy. That's insane. I got so much going on in my mind right now as to what could be happening. No, I just gotta let this story keep going.
And instead, he just continues to speak in tongues to her. And so the two of them are looking at each other, speaking in tongues, and the rest of the group is just totally dumbfounded. And so they just begin praying. And then after about an hour, Michael just collapses. It's like he went unconscious. And at that point, everybody in the room just goes silent, and they look at Michael. And then Michael kind of opens his eyes, and it's almost like he's waking up, and he begins looking around frantically, trying to figure out what had just happened. Michael would claim he had no memory of what had just happened to him. And so at this point, Marie would tell him and Christine that she believed Michael was possessed by a demonic force, and the only thing they could do at this point would be to perform an exorcism. An exorcism is an expulsion or attempted expulsion of a supposedly evil spirit inside of a person or a place. Michael and Christine were at a loss. They had no idea what to do in this situation. They were both kind of in shock for very different reasons. And so they just kind of deferred to Marie's judgment and said, yeah, I think an exorcism is the way to go.
Hell, I would blame Marie. She was just talking in tongue too. She's the one. She's not a good person. She's probably evil. She's probably the reason why he doesn't have that back pain, because he has this whole evil spirit that is possessing him, that's taking that pain away. But it only does it while they're in this church. And for this spirit to be in this sacred holy place. See, man, I don't do churches. I don't. I'm gonna be honest. I don't do them. Not for me.
So Christine and Michael just leave the church and go home. And then the next morning, Marie would get in touch with the Anglican Church of England and would request an exorcism. And after hearing
shit, she need one too.
About what was going on with Michael, the Anglican Church would say, yeah, that does sound like he needs an exorcism. And so the following day, they would send out two of their best exorcists named Peter and Raymond. And so Peter and Raymond, they get to Ossett, they go to Michael's house, and they observe him. And very quickly, they determine that it does seem like Michael is possessed by at least one demonic force. And so they tell Michael, the only thing we can do here is perform this exorcism, but we need you to agree to it. And so Michael says, okay, yeah, I agree to this exorcism, and so would his wife, because she at this point is just completely unsure what to do. She's just going along for the ride.
Yo, imagine not knowing. He didn't know what happened. People are just telling him that something happened to him. And then now he needs an exorcism done upon him. So it's okay, I guess. Y'all say something happened. Okay, do your thing.
So a day later, on October 4th at 10 p.m., Michael, his wife, and the rest of the members of this fellowship group, along with Peter and Raymond, they would all meet at this other church in a neighboring town. And as soon as Michael had been positioned in the middle of this group in this chair, Peter and Raymond began the ritual by praying. And as soon as they did, Michael began screaming out in tongues, and he began writhing around, and he fell to the ground, and he began contorting his body.
Y'all see this over here?
In grotesque positions, as if the words Peter and Raymond were saying
were hurting him,
were physically harming Michael. And so after 8 hours of this, during which they had to actually tie Michael down to prevent him from hurting other members or hurting himself, after 8 hours, they finally just came to a stop. Peter and Raymond were exhausted. It looked very much like Michael too was exhausted. And as soon as they stopped the ritual, Michael just kind of collapsed on the ground as if he had fallen unconscious. And then at some point he kind of wakes up and he's looking around wildly. He's still tied down to the ground and he's acting like he has no idea what's just happened. And at this point, Peter and Raymond, they tell him that, the exorcism was mostly successful. We identified 40 demons inside of you, and this exorcism was able to expel 37 of them. So that means...
That's so specific. 8 hours this went on for. How did they know there's 40 in him, 40 demons, and they were able to release 37 of them? Is there something distinctive that occurs when each demon leaves the body or leaves the vessel? How would they know? This is crazy.
There's still 3 demons inside of you. Now, we can't do it right now. We're too tired. You're too exhausted. So
leave him tied up.
So go home, get some rest, and tomorrow we will finish this exorcism. We will get rid of those 3 demons, and you will be just fine.
Man, see, look. I'm not a church person, but my assumption is he went to that church, and that woman was putting them demons inside of him. That's why he was so obsessed with that place.
And so Michael and Christine, they get their things and they leave the church and they head home. A few hours later, around noon, a woman who lived near where Michael Taylor and his family lived thought she heard something strange outside of her house. It sounded like someone yelling. And so she went to the front of the house and she pulled the curtain aside on one of her windows. And outside, walking down the street completely naked, covered in blood, was Michael Taylor, and he was saying something about Satan. And so this woman, she calls the police show up, and they find Michael. He had curled up on the sidewalk outside of this woman's house, and he was giggling like a child in the fetal position. And so the police approach him, and at some point Michael apparently snaps out of it, and he starts looking up at the police like he has no idea what's going on, and eventually they would get him to tell them his name and where he lived. And so after calling in backup to deal with Michael, the responding officers made their way to Michael's residence. And so they go inside, and immediately, as soon as they see what's in there, one of the officers just turns around and runs outside and begins dry heaving. The inside of the Taylor family home would become one of the most infamous crime scenes in English history. A few hours earlier, when Michael and his wife had come home from the exorcism...
What did I say? Leave him tied up. I'm over here thinking, if there's 3 demons still inside of him, that's more than enough to want to do something that is detrimental. What? Hell, 1 demon is enough. But 3? And they know that it's a possibility that they're going to be exiting this vessel soon because 37 of their fellow demons have already left via exorcism? Of course, they're about to do some damage immediately. What does Mr. Mrballen say?
One of the most infamous crime scenes
just
in
hours
English history.
after the exorcism.
Hours earlier, when Michael and his wife had come home from the exorcism, they had gone inside, and then Michael had fallen into one of his trances and began beating his wife. And then at some point, she fell to the ground and either was dead or was in the process of dying, at which point Michael jumped on top of her, and using only his hands, he ripped her face off and flung it across the room. And then as she's laying there, bleeding to death, he began rubbing her blood all over his body. And then after she had finally died...
If this story is real, demons real. Demons are real. Exorcism, all that stuff, that junk is real. Because no loving, caring, laughing, giggling, happy, once happy man in his right mind is just going to turn into this. This kind of takes me back to one of my favorite books, Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, where the devil says that he possessed 98% of people. The other 2% are possessed or controlled by his opposition, who we all call God. This was a God-fearing man, even though they wasn't religious. He was a God-fearing man. Then this back pain made him mean. So when he went into this church, Them demons, they found him to be the perfect vessel. This man that had all this anger and hatred in his heart. They're like, oh, he's the one. And they filled his body up with demons. The freak.
He tracked down the family dog and killed the dog as well.
The dog?
Fortunately, their 5 children were not home at the time of this attack, and so they were unharmed.
Woo.
During Michael's trial, the prosecution and the defense blamed the Anglican Church of England and Marie and her religious group for effectively convincing Michael he was possessed with demons, which caused him to act out violently and kill his wife. And so...
More than that, no. I don't think that they convinced him that he was possessed with demons. I think that they are. Maria and her little group, she is the reason why he's possessed with demons.
Ultimately, Michael would be found not guilty by reason of insanity, and after only 4 years of psychiatric care, he was released. And today, he is still living free in Ossett. But despite the legal outcomes of this case, there are many people, both religious and not religious, who believe the Michael Taylor case is one of the only true demonic possession cases in modern history.
That's what I was thinking as well. I was thinking the exact same thing. I was like, this seemed like this might be the only real, actual case of a demonic possession. This seems like the realest one ever.
Also, just to close the loop, we don't know for sure if Michael and Marie were having an affair, but it is assumed they were. And so that's going to do it, guys. If you found the secret in today's episode...
Man, how come nobody looked at Marie and her little group be like, yo, what's up? But it could also be that he was the only case, the only incident. So something happened with this man. If Marie's group was fine before and after, and no other cases of demonic presence came out from that group, then everything was peachy with that group. Something happened with him. Because I do find it to be a bit fascinating that when his wife stormed in that door to tell him to confess to cheating, that he stood up without looking at his wife, looked directly at Marie, and the look that was on his face that was so demonic made her scream. Before she started talking in tongue as well, she screamed like she was in fear. So either she's not a demon or she plays not a demon very well. But this story was crazy. Every story he told, wow, just, oh my God, this is crazy. This is one of the best Mr. Ballen videos that I've watched thus far. Shout out to Mr. Ballen for being such a great storyteller and providing this great content for us, man. But y'all know what time it is. Leave your thoughts, comments, and opinions down below. This is crazy. This was crazy. Hold on. Wait, my phone's about to die, but I got a couple of Cash in the App donos that came through. Shout out to all of you guys. Thank y'all so much. Let me go ahead and read them off. It was Christopher. It was Misty. Karen and Christopher again yesterday as well. Shout out to you guys. Thank y'all so much for the $5 donos. Man, I'm about to get up out of here. I kind of want to read the chat a little bit before I go. This was crazy. This was so crazy. Wow. Yeah, no, he definitely did have a whole lot of pent-up anger